Hey guys, hope everyone's doing just great. So today I want to talk about this bad boy, the 2019 16-inch MacBook Pro. So specifically I'm going to take you through the performance of it and just see how it compares perhaps to some of the previous editions. If you're just interested in what I think of the unit, jump to this time code here. Otherwise, stay watching and we'll have a look, see how well this thing performs. To start then, let's have a look and see which MacBook Pro we are looking at. So this is a 2019 2.3 GHz 8-core i9. It's got 32 gigabytes of RAM. It's got the Radeon Pro 5500 in there, and in storage I think this has got a 1 terabyte drive. Yeah, there we go. So first thing then, let's go and have a look at the throttling, because I know quite a few people were worried about this. And the way we can do it, let's fire up the Intel Power Gadget. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this running for a few minutes just so we can see what happens to the temperature and also the frequency there. So what we can do is we can actually go up to the tests, we can go all thread frequency. So let's leave this running for 10 minutes or so and we'll just see what happens to those values. So if you look at the performance figures here, specifically if you look at the frequency, it's maxing out around 4 gigahertz. The average is about 3.7 gigahertz, and the minimum so far has been 3.6. So it's never dropping below that base clock speed, which is exactly what we want to see. So my first edition i9, for example, would regularly drop below clock, which was not great, and I think that's what everyone was complaining about. Now of course, while it's flatlined, the fans are on full, and what I've done in the bottom corner there is I've put a decibel meter right by the loudest part of the machine just so you can see what that's like. I know everyone loves a good benchmark, so let's have a look at some of those. So what I have here is a collection of benchmarks from various machines that I've used over the last few years. So you can see the 2019 16-inch MacBook Pro there, and look how close it is in terms of CPU performance to the iMac Pro. It is remarkably close, and also in general day-to-day use it does feel very similar to my 8-core desktop. You can compare it below there with the recent, well I say recent, the 2018 Mac Mini. That's a 6-core i7 one. So you can see it's a very, very quick machine. Now obviously where this machine does suffer a little bit against the iMac Pro is in the graphics area, but of course then it also goes and beats the Mac Mini, which the graphics in that are fairly terrible, to be honest. So let's compare it to the 2018 unit, which is a 2018 i9 as well. So as you can see, it's quite a jump up in terms of performance, both for the graphics and in terms of the CPU. Therefore it's a lot faster than that one as well. All in all, it feels like a very quick machine. If you want a good laugh, by the way, have a look at the performance of the Surface Book 2, which I got rid of eventually because I thought it was terrible. There are other benchmarks we can look at, so let's have a look at the Blackmagic disk speed test, for example, because the drives in these machines are phenomenally quick. There we go, so we're getting write speeds around 2.2 gigabytes per second and read speeds around 2.5 gigabytes per second. Now bear in mind the drive in this is fully encrypted, and at the moment I am recording the screen, which also seems to impact those figures. Now the drive in my iMac is faster than this. I get read speeds around the 3 gigabytes per second on my iMac Pro, and the write speeds are around 2.8 gigabits per second. Also the network test, I find I get a lot of comments on my internet connection that I have. I get it from a company called HyperOptic, and one of the benefits of living in central London is really good internet. It's a gigabit connection and it's been a great service from them. Anyway, let's move on. Let's have a look at photo processing then. So what I have here is about 19 gigabytes of RAW files. These are straight from a Sony A7R Mark IV, which generates massive files, 123 megabytes as it's a 61 megapixel camera. What I've done is I've already imported them into Lightroom here, and what we can do is we can make some changes to one photo and we'll just apply all those changes to all the other photos so you can see what it's like. I'm not going to do much, I'm certainly not going to correct all of them, but what we'll do is we'll just do auto and perhaps fix the lens profiles. There we go. So what I'm going to do is just copy that, the changes I've made to that photo, and paste it to all the others. Now this used to really make my old laptop sweat quite a lot, and I couldn't do anything else with it while it was doing this sort of stuff. 153 photos to effect. And it's done. I think that's pretty impressive. It's certainly a lot more usable than my previous laptop. So what about exports? Well, let's export all of these. So I'm going to go full quality. Now bear in mind these are 123 megabyte raw files. So let's see how long this takes. And we're all done. As I expected, it did take a little while to run. Now I've run exactly the same process on my iMac Pro. My iMac Pro finished it about 30 seconds ahead of this unit, which is not a massive amount of time, and I think it just shows how capable this laptop actually is. Let's move on and look at desktop virtualizations. I use Parallels Desktop to run Windows 10 on this laptop. I also use VMware Fusion, but I tend to use that for my server products. Now, if you're interested in a comparison between VMware Fusion and Parallels Desktop, I've done a video about that recently, so have a look at the link in the description. It will take you there. But let's have a look at the performance of this machine. This is the one we're going to have a look at. If we pop up the configuration of it, you'll see that I've got 4 processor cores allocated and 8 gig of RAM. So let's fire the machine up. We can have a look at the performance. There we go. Let's get logged in. And there we are at our desktop. So I think you'll agree that the performance of that so far is pretty impressive. Let's get some apps fired up. So perhaps we'll pop into Chrome. Let's pop into, say, we can fire up Visio. There's PowerPoint. We've got Word, Excel. There we go. So I think you can see that the performance is really usable. If we have a quick look at Task Manager, you can see that we've got our 4 virtual processors on a single socket and that we've got 8 gig of RAM allocated to this machine. Now I typically use Parallels now in something called coherence mode, which I'll quickly show you. Go to View, pop into Coherence. There we go. And now we've got all of our Windows apps and we can run them alongside our Mac OS apps as well. So I think that mode is really powerful, and that's how I tend to use some of my office-based apps for my day job. So let's get this machine shut down. And it's done. Let's have a look at video editing and video exporting, because I think this might surprise a few people. So what I'm doing in the test here is just exporting one of my YouTube videos that I've done previously. At the bottom, I'm doing it on the new MacBook Pro, and on the top, I'm doing it on my iMac Pro. What you might be surprised to see is that the iMac Pro manages to export this video in 18 minutes 24 seconds, but the MacBook Pro does it in 11 minutes 46 seconds. Now, that sort of performance is very consistent with my older MacBook Pro being faster than the iMac Pro at exporting as well. And I think it's down to the fact that the Intel Xeon chips in the iMac Pro don't have some of the video extensions that the MacBook Pro does have with its non-Xeon chips. What I will say is that the video editing experience on both machines is very similar. Being able to edit 4K video on the go is really quite good, and I find that really useful. So for example, on one of my recent travel trips, I actually edited the video on the go, which I used to struggle to do with on my older 13-inch MacBook Pro. Well, I hope that was useful. It's a great performing machine and I've really enjoyed using it. It's the nearest I've got to a portable iMac Pro in terms of performance, which is pretty impressive really. The new keyboard is great. To be clear though, I never really had a problem with the old Butterfly one, but I do, I think, prefer the tactile feel of the newer one. Marginally. Size-wise, well, day to day, I don't find it too big. When I'm traveling though, when I'm away for a little while, the size does make itself known. It doesn't fit in the 15-inch leather sleeves, by the way, so if you've bought one of those pricey things from Apple, you'll need one of the newer ones for this unit. It does fit in most of the same bags, well, the ones I have anyway, as my 15-inch. It's a bit tight in one of the bags though, tight enough so I don't use that one anymore, but I imagine with most bags it should be fine. And I can't help thinking that this is the laptop Apple wanted to make with the last few generation units. It doesn't seem to suffer from the throttling, the noise, and everything seems to work as a package. And it doesn't seem to have any real downsides from what I can see. Is it perfect? No, of course it isn't. I'm still missing the SD card slots quite a lot. Although perhaps I'm missing the old USB socket less and less as time goes on and everything switches over to USB-C. It is though a fantastic laptop, and in this guise one of the most capable pieces of portable kit I've ever used. Battery life can suffer when you're doing the heavy lifting, but then that's pretty much the same with any laptop. If you're interested in a way to extend the battery life, by the way, check out the video showing how to disable the turbo boost. I'll put the link down below in the description. That's enough for me anyway. If you found this useful, I'd appreciate a thumbs up, or maybe even hit that subscribe button. If not, well, I'll try harder next time. Till then.